from the river to the sea. Would you ban that?
I would absolutely say that this is a chant for genocide, and you guys need to understand what they mean by that, and it has to be banned.
5, 6, 7, 8! Israel is a terrorist state!
I spoke to so many Arab Israelis in Dubai, and they told me, Loay, we're freaked out. We're freaked out to have a Palestinian state. Arab Israelis. Okay, you have now a Palestinian state. Give back your Israeli citizenship and go live there. We don't want to live there. We want to live as Arab Israelis.
Within the Quran itself, it says that God designated the land of Israel to the Jewish people. Assigned, yes. You don't understand the conflict unless you understand 3 words. Dar al-Islam.
Of course.
So talk to us about
Mahmoud al-Zahar, one of the leaders of Hamas, he said that our goal is not Palestine. Palestine does not appear in the map to us. Our goal is the restoration of the caliphate.
Yeah.
And by the way, when that happens, all of you will be second-class citizens. If citizens at all, second-class residents, and you will pay a tax for your survival.
Tell us how they can go on that theological shift. What are the steps they can take to basically make peace with a Jewish state? And clearly there's going to need to be some kind of reinterpretation of Dar al-Islam. Yeah.
One word, a reform.
First of all, thank you again to Denise for hosting this event, and for Loay Al-Shareef for your time and the opportunity to speak to you. The origins of this is that I was introduced to you, as I said, 2 days ago. I heard you speak here in Denise's home. And I have to say, and you were all going to be, as I felt on Monday, so blown away by, there's 3 things that I wrote down that I thought after I heard you speak. Your bravery, your moral clarity, and I was a bit surprised by your level of theological knowledge on both Islam and Judaism, as you're going to see. Loay Al-Shareef is a hero, and you're gonna see why. So, Loay, first of all, thank you. And can you start by I'm going to open the floor to you, let you just tell everyone your amazing journey.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much for the great introduction. Thank you so much, Denise. And thank you all for attending. By the way, I feel so comfortable with the jacket because we're not used to this weather back home. We come from the desert, so it's like...
this is mild for us.
Yeah, I know, I'm so cold. But anyway, I'm so comfortable. So my name is Loay Al-Shareef. I don't advise you to call my name in the Arabic way, Loay. Just call me Louis. Louis is fine. So I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia to a Saudi Egyptian family. I was raised in a way that is very, I was raised a religious Muslim. I memorized the whole Quran, the entire Quran, and I read all the books of Hadith. And by the way, I want to tell you one thing, that the way I was raised is different from the Loay that you see right now. So I was raised a very, very religious Muslim, in a way that I took everything literal to the meaning, especially I was a believer in the continuous enmity between Muslims and Jews and Muslims and Christians and Muslims and others, and this is the good thing to do if you want to please God, according to our views. The great thing is that so many things now in education change in the Gulf, Saudi Arabia and other states as well, to the better. I had a look at the education curriculum 2 years ago, and it was like massive, and I looked at it and I said in Hebrew, Ani lo ma'amin. Wow, I cannot believe this. What is this? This is not what we were taught. It's totally different, but it's an amazing thing. So the life transforming event that happened that really changed my life was in 2010. I was 27 at that time, and I decided to learn French. So I did something called a homestay program. A homestay program is a program where you live with a family to learn a language. And that family, and the school put me with a family, and in France they would never tell you the religion of the family. But I thought they would see someone coming from Jeddah, so they would put him with a Moroccan, Tunisian, Algerian family. They put me with a Jewish family. And the moment I realized that they were Jews, when I went to their house, I saw a big Star of David, Hamagen David, in their house, and I was about to scream, but I didn't. So I sent an email to the school. I want to tell you one thing. I'm going to share the email very soon in one of my videos. I still have the email from 2010. I don't feel proud of it, but I feel proud of the journey that led me to what I am right now. I have the email that I emailed the school. By the way, the school's name is Accords School in Paris. You can look it up. I emailed the school and I asked for a transfer because I don't feel comfortable being with a Jewish family. That was in 2010. Can you believe that? Now, the good thing is that Rachel, or Rachel, the mother, did not take it personal. I don't know why. I don't know why. But the school told me, okay, so you'll spend a couple of days with the family until we find you a transfer. I believe they were shocked with this kind of response, but I didn't feel comfortable because the media and everything tells you that Jews are bad, Jews are evil, Jews have fangs, Jews are conspiring against Muslims. One of the books that really affected my childhood was called The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. I got it from Egypt, and in the first page of the book, it says, this is the book that the Jews don't want you to read. Can you imagine that? Oh, the protocol number 1, Jews will take control of the world by the money. Rule number 2, or protocol number 2, Jews will take over the media. So I was very influenced. I cannot deny that. So the family, the mother then, she said, okay, we'll take a couple of days before we move to another family. And in this period, for the 2 weeks, the mother used to take me with her shopping, and I did 2 Shabbats, and I tasted Jewish food. And I had this inner battle, I would say, the inner battle between the religious texts that you have that say, for example, never take Jews and Christians as friends. The fierce enemies of the believers are the Jews. Never greet Jews and Christians. I'm being very honest and blunt in what I say because not so many people are willing to say that we have this kind of problem, but we do. So I called the school and I said, let me just put the transfer on hold. I think I'm going to go with this family and see the end of it. I remember that the family was traditional family. It was a traditional French family. They are originally Yemeni. So the first thing they did was make me get into Jewish songs. Ofra Chazza was the key. So on my way here, Eric, I was with Eric in the car. Rick, I'm sorry, Rick. I don't know why I'm saying Eric. Rick. And I played to Rick a few songs. I said these songs, the first songs that I listened to in 2010. It was one of them was Shema Israel by Mordechai ben David, and then Ofra Chaz, the songs Tfilah and other songs by Ofra. So in this period in France, the mother was very educated. I went to study French. I ended up learning Judaism and Hebrew. So I just wanted you to know.
Wow.
And I learned Judaism from the source. And I learned biblical Hebrew from the source, Ivrit Miqra'it, not the modern Hebrew, the biblical Hebrew. I fell in love with the Bible, with the Tanakh, I would say. I do remember, just fast forward, when I returned to Jeddah, I told my mother that, of course, my mother knew that I was living with this family and stuff. I used to update her, but I told her, my mom, I think there is something changing in my views. My mom, I love her so much. She said, Loay Habibi, I will give you 2 months, and then you will go back to the Salafi Loay that we all know. It's been now 14 years, so I didn't go back, and something really touched my heart. It was not something very emotional. In that period, I remember Rachel told me one thing before I left France, before I left Paris. I'd never been to Paris from that time, but I'm going very soon, inshallah. I remember that Rachel told me, Loay, I want you, and I was nobody at that time. I'm still nobody, but I didn't have social media presence. I didn't have anything. I don't know what she saw, but she said, Loay, I want you to do a mitzvah that we believe in. One of the mitzvot that we believe in. It's called Tikon Olam, like heal the world. She said, by the way, this is a song by Michael Jackson. Heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. Fix the world. And I want to tell you one thing. The first thing I did in 2012, 2 years after the encounter, the first encounter with the Jewish family, is I did a show on YouTube teaching thousands of Saudis and Arabs English through entertainment. That idea was mind-blowing that I was nominated and I won the best educational idea in Saudi Arabia in 2013. I was honored by the Minister of Education at that time. His name is Faisal bin Abdullah. I posted the photo a couple of days ago, or 2 weeks ago, and I said that this was the first journey of Tikon Olam. The second thing was to teach people ancient languages because I have love for languages. And I kept doing all of this. I wasn't very outspoken about Israel until 2017. 2017, I started to speak about historical facts in the region. So I talked about the connection between the Jewish people and the land of Israel when it comes to Jerusalem. And I gave few facts about Jerusalem. And honestly, it was like the first smearing campaign I have ever had. I do remember an American businessman. His name was Eli Epstein, good friend of mine. He helped me out get out of this mirroring campaign by going to Dubai. That was the first time I met the Jewish community there. Rabbi Sarna, Ili Abadi at that time, and everyone. And in 2020, after the Abraham Accords, I moved to the UAE. I have a small PR company that I do lots of work in the UAE, and I decided to speak up before the Abraham Accords and strenuously after the Abraham Accords, especially when October 7th happened. When October 7th happened, I had two options, either to be silent or to speak up for the values that I really believe in. And I believe that the times of hardship show the true color of a person, whether he is on which side he is. The side of extremism, you want to be on the side of Hamas. Those are the people that you held their ideology when you were in your early 20s. The ideology of jihad, the ideology of extreme enmity against Jews and Christians and others, or the new ideology when you say you changed. Did you really change, Loay? Or you're just pretending? I said I did change, and I'm not going back to hate. So I spoke up. I spoke out the first day of October 7th, and of course before that I used to make videos, and I still do make videos about the commonalities between Islam and Judaism, Arabic and Hebrew, and other languages. And I believe that this message is the noble message that Rachel and God want me to do in this life, in the life of this world, turning from someone who hated to someone who finds the beauty of the Lord in loving your fellow human being, even if you have your differences with them. And zero regrets, and I'm keep on doing that. And I believe that it's a noble message. And my ultimate message is to see a Middle East where Arabs and Israelis, Muslims and Jews live together. A world or a Middle East where the prophecy of Isaiah becomes true, when he said, "Lo yasa goy el goy heriv, velo yelmidu od milhama." Nation shall not lift up sword against nation; they shall learn war no more. I believe I have a responsibility of being part in fulfilling this prophecy, and I'm doing all my best to fulfill it. Be'ezrat Hashem, inshallah.
Wow! Yeah. Yeah, I told you you'd like him. Louis, first of all, I agree with you, and it seems clear to me that is going to be your destiny and your path, and you're already living that and actualizing that. I think there's two main elements that we have to unpack here. There's the political issues and the theological issues. And I think we're actually both in agreement that the root of these issues are theological. And with shifts on that, we'll see all kinds of solutions and peace arise. But let's start about talking about just the political issues and the facts on the ground there, because you can really offer us some insight into thinking that's going on, especially in parts of the Arab world and the Muslim world. So would you mind just giving us all a bit of a run through of both the Muslim world and perhaps the world in which, let's say Europe, where you have quite large Muslim populations, in terms of the hatred, where the moderates are, the extremists are, where you're going to see potential room for constructive relationships with Israel. Just talk us through that.
So the moderate is in the Gulf states, especially in the UAE. The UAE is the haven that everyone should know that the real moderate Islam is. And then Saudi Arabia and other countries as well in the region. When you go to North Africa, it's a bit more complicated. But I just want to tell you one thing, everyone, that this has been the mainstream idea that everyone was fed in the region, that Israel is the enemy, Jews are the colonialists, the protocols of the elders of Zion. To change that overnight, it will take time. But I do see hope, because I always say that if I change, I believe that so many can change. And I see people change, by the way. The videos I do on Instagram, the content that I post, I see people send me messages. Sometimes I share these messages. So I see there's a change. It's a difficult mission, but it's worth fighting for. It's worth fighting for. And I hope that this war ends very soon the right way. Ends the right way. The right way where you have no more threat by those who started October 7th, and by all the hostages being released, and by having a permanent peace in the region, inshallah.
And speaking of October 7th, I couldn't help but thinking after I first heard your talk that part of what led to your shift was exposure therapy. You're exposed to Jews.
Exactly.
But then on the other hand, I think about a lot of these terrorists that committed the atrocities on October 7th. they were exposed to communities. Some of them worked and betrayed their Israeli colleagues that lived in the surrounding towns. So I accept that there's not going to be a same level of intimacy in relationship that you would have experienced living in someone's home. But how do you sort of make sense of that?
I told you when I met the Jewish family, I had this inner battle. The inner battle between believing the text or believing my eyes and reality. I know that not so many people would pass this test or would pass it in their own thinking, that to say that, you know what, maybe there's something wrong with the text. They would say, no, we will have to trust the text all the way. Texts that promote enmity are dangerous, and this is why I always say that. But some people believe in that. And I have no problem in whatever you want to believe in, as long as you don't do harm to me. Those who committed the October 7th, if you really want to understand why they did so, you have to read their charter. And I ask all of you, have you ever read Hamas charter? I'm so sure that even those who said, yes, you haven't. I had a discussion with someone who said, yeah, I have read the two charter, the watered down charter in 2017 and the original one in 1988. I said, you didn't read it. He said, Loay, come on, I read it. I said, show it to me. He showed it to me. He showed me the English version. He said, you haven't read it. You haven't read it. You have to read the Arabic version. The Arabic version that says that the enmity with the Jews is eternal until we fight the Jews and they will hide behind the trees, and the tree and the stone will speak up and they say, I'm Muslim, there's a Jew behind me, come and kill him. How can you have peace with people who have this kind of belief? You will never have peace with them. So that would justify for those workers to betray those who worked for. If I'm a terrorist who worked for a family, would find a legitimacy to betray them because they are Jews.
But you had those,
but
not to that level.
I had. But I decided to say, it's wrong, I expunge it.
And how? How did you get there?
I did this because I felt that it's taking part of my humanity. Why would I hate Rachel or other Jewish families or other Jews because of a text that says that the fierce enemies of the believers are Jews? I believe now, when I read these texts, that these texts had a context that is not applicable nowadays. And Rachel also told me, Loay, we have also some things in the Bible that are not applicable. For example, you have a verse in the Bible that says, for example, that a slave has to obey his master. That doesn't mean that we should restore slavery in order to apply this kind of verse. Things had context, and if you believe that the enmity is eternal, then you will not be able to live with the rest of the world. And I felt that this really touched me. And I asked myself when I saw Muslims in France, then how you guys can live with these kind of beliefs if you really believe in. I was taking Islam so seriously. If you take Islam so seriously, then how can you reconcile with texts that would tell you never take Jews and Christians as friends if you don't want to expunge that? If you are truthful to yourself, you have to say there is something wrong. And I did this. And this is how I reconciled and restored my humanity. I always say, I restored my humanity in 2010.
So you basically listen to your conscience. Is what
Absolutely.
you're saying.
And not only that, if someone comes to me and says, well, the Torah that you love so much has this text or that text, any text that promotes hatred, pure hatred against someone because of their race, color, religion, ethnicity is rejected. Simple, basic, and elementary.
So I want to touch deeper on those theological issues because that, as we said, is part of the solution. But let's just stay on some of the political issues for now. When I heard you speak 2 days ago, and part of what I was touching on in the question about take us through the world, you were saying that you felt in some ways the issue of radical Islamic extremism in Europe is worse than many parts of the Arab world.
Yes.
Can you elaborate?
Absolutely. I believe the problem with Europe is that the over-tolerance and the mix of freedom of speech with freedom of incitement. I hope that the legislators in the UK and in Europe understand the magnitude of some chance that they don't understand. From the river to the sea, that's a pure call for genocide. Khaybar, Khaybar, ya Yahud. I bet no one knows what that battle cry really means. So there's a red line between okay, that's good. Some people know. But I believe there is a red line between freedom of speech and freedom of incitement. And because Europe and your interpretation of freedom of speech is a bit, I understand free society and everything, but sometimes that incites hate and that increases radicalization. So this is a very important point.
Absolutely, and I think what they're doing is they're using our own values to destroy us.
Absolutely, just like they believe in democracy to destroy democracy.
Right.
You believe that those
Yeah.
radicals believe in the nation state?
Yeah.
They don't believe so. They don't believe in that.
So, for example, this very cry, from the river to the sea, would you ban that? Would you say that Western politicians should ban that? And if you say that, that's basically incitement.
I would absolutely say that this is a chant for genocide, and you guys need to understand what they mean by that, and it has to be banned.
Yeah.
By the way, I met the Austrian ambassador in Abu Dhabi, and he told me it's banned in Austria, and it's also banned in Germany, I guess. And I hope that it's banned very soon in the UK, because it's terrifying when I meet Jewish British people, British Jews, that tell me that we don't feel safe in our own country. I mean, like, this is crazy.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. And we were speaking also about the Abraham Accords. Do you think that what's happened recently, this Israel-Hamas war, is that going to threaten it? Where does this leave the progress that was made?
It will not threaten it. I'm very optimistic that the advisor to Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, the president of the UAE, his name is Anwar Gargash. He said that we made a strategic decision, and strategic decisions are long term. And I'll be very honest also in my opinions that the Abraham Accords started with a great support by America. And unfortunately, this support is not that good when the Biden administration came.
Why?
With all due respect to President Biden and his administration, it wasn't that fully backed.
Why? Because
maybe they thought it's a rivalry. It's like an achievement from for the old administration. But I think that whatever president of the U.S. comes, he has to know that the Arab-Israeli conflict is the most important conflict to be solved. Imagine having a Middle East where peace and prosperity rule. Imagine a Middle East where Arabs and Israelis live together in peace and prosperity. How could that region could be the new Europe? And I believe it can be. This is why I don't lose hope. And I don't think that this war will affect the Abraham Accords, because deep down, every official knows that this war, Hamas started it. Hamas started this war. It's a war that Israel didn't ask for. And I believe, by the way, that the politics made by some statements here and there, they are made for known reasons, to absorb the anger in the public. But I also believe that everyone knows that the end road would lead to a permanent peace with Israel. And this is why I'm not very worried about the future of the Abraham Accords.
And speaking of political solutions for peace, the consensus in the Western world has been two-state solution. This is starting to shift for sure in Israel and many parts of the Jewish world, and for other people as well, who are starting to just say there's only so much that we can indulge of that could lead to potentially threatening Israel's existence. What's your view on the whole issue of two-state solution?
In my personal humble opinion, I believe the two-state solution was the solution in 2000. 2000 was the last year that the opportunity of a two-state solution could be viable and could be applicable. I'll tell you why. At that time, Arafat and Ehud Barak and Bill Clinton were working on a draft. And by the way, the Saudi ambassador to the United States said that they were so close to achieve a deal. And that deal was to give a big part of the West Bank to the Palestinians, plus Gaza, because Gaza at that time was occupied. I always say this plan was much better than the one in 2008 that was proposed by Ehud Olmert. Because even with the plan proposed by Ehud Olmert, with the land swaps that you had, the one in 2000 was better. I'll tell you why. Because 2008 was already 3 years after 2005. In 2005, Sharon decided to unilaterally withdraw from Gaza. So if the Israelis withdrew from Gaza in 2000, with this deal, that would give a sense of victory to the Palestinians, that you have retrieved what you wanted to aim, or what you aimed for, which is the 1967 borders. But since the deal in 2000 failed, and the Prince of Saudi, the ambassador the Saudi ambassador to America said that the Palestinians failed it. Not my say, he said it. I believe that was like the end of a realistic two-state solution. And now, the two-state solution, in my personal humble opinion, the death certificate of the two-state solution was signed on October 7th, 6 a.m. I don't personally believe. What is the solution? I don't know. I don't really know. I have crazy ideas, but I don't think that that it will happen very soon. Unfortunately, I do care. I always say that as much as I love the Israelis and I consider them a mishpacha, a family to me, I always say that I love the Palestinians too, and I wish that the Palestinian suffering be brought to an end. But they have to have a responsible leader who is willing to accept living side by side with their Jewish neighbors, not by considering the Jewish people as foreign colonialists or conquerors. And this is what you said about the theological part. I believe the theological part is a big hurdle to those leaders who don't believe in the right of the Jewish people to live in that land. And I remember that I read in the book of the diaries of Clinton, he said that I had a discussion with Arafat, and he told me, I don't recognize a Jewish temple in Jerusalem. And that was like astonishing. And by the way, all the Muslims around the world who call the holy site Bayt al-Maqdis, they don't know that the word al-Maqdis is not an Arabic word. If you want to call it the holy house, you would say al-Bayt al-Muqaddas. But if you say Bayt al-Maqdis, it's a loan word. It's a loan word from Hebrew, from Bayt HaMikdash, which is the Jewish temple. So how can you deny the right, or how can you deny the existence? Sometimes I blame Moshe Dayan for that, because Moshe Dayan, when he gave the waqf, the full responsibility, out of good intention, I cannot deny that, but he conceded one of the most important things. I wish he would say, well, you know what, this site is shared in holiness between us and you guys, so let's just reach a deal, a better deal, not just like you take it, and now in order to reclaim it again, it would be a problem. And this is a big problem to those who don't really understand the history and the complexity of this situation.
Absolutely. So let's now talk about the theological issues, because we both agree this is the root of the issue.
I do believe so.
Exactly. And I've really that's really exemplified by this point that I heard. I interviewed a brilliant man called Rabbi Daniel Rowe on JTV a few days ago. And he made the point to me. He said, if you were to go up to any of the Palestinian leaders, the activists, Hamas, throughout basically it's all of its existence, and you were to ask them, I'll give you two options. Option A, free Palestine. You have a Palestinian nation state basically from the river to the sea, except for one little pocket of land, let's say going all the way back to, let's say, the Peel Commission, or just some kind of town or small area in the north that remains under Jewish control. Or option B, no free Palestine, forget that, no national self-determination as Palestinians, but it's instead controlled by some other Islamic country, or going back to Ottoman Empire, whatever. What would you prefer? And he said they'd go for the latter. Do you agree with that?
Do I agree that the Palestinians would think so?
The leadership would, past or present.
Unfortunately.
So that proves that the whole Palestinian national cause is phony. And it's really about the issue of, he said, you don't understand the conflict unless you understand three words, Dar al-Islam.
Of course.
So talk to us about
Mahmoud al-Zahar, one of the leaders of Hamas, he said that our goal is not Palestine. Palestine does not appear in the map to us. Our goal is the restoration of the caliphate.
Yeah.
And by the way, when that happens, all of you will be second-class citizens, if citizens at all, second-class residents, and you will pay a tax for your survival. And of course, people like me would be hanged, crucified for being apostates. And I think it's a terrible future that none of us want to. You will be ruled by a law that would not only proselytize you, but it would force you to live in a lifestyle that maybe you don't believe in. And if you study the history of the caliphates, you would see that it was a bloody history, filled with blood, filled with justified killings because of different opinions.
Yeah.
And thank God we don't have this history anymore. And I believe that this is the mentality. And by the way, I spoke to so many Arab Israelis in Dubai, and they told me, Loay, we're freaked out. We're freaked out to have a Palestinian state. Arab Israelis. They said if there is a Palestinian state and someone like Smotrich or Ben Gvir told us, okay, you have now a Palestinian state, give back your Israeli citizenship and go live there. We don't want to live there. We want to live as Arab Israelis. We're so grateful for being Arab Israelis. We have the house ownership. We work in real estate. We earn a lot in Israel. And I believe the morality of Israel gives it this kind of sense that inshallah it will win. It will win this war against those monsters.
Amen. But this really gets to the crux. If not, this is the million-dollar question, which is that for the radical Muslims and the people who have been inspired in the Palestinian leadership, who are inspired by this idea of Dar al-Islam, that basically their notion of history is that Islam is going to conquer the world, and that means it's not just religious for them, it's political. It now makes sense that Israel is such an abomination in their mind, because what do they do with the fact that these dhimmis have now restored their national homeland? It's like, this is not how history is meant to progress. And it's like, we have to see this as something that has to be eliminated. It's an arch evil. So tell us how they can go on that theological shift. What are the steps they can take to basically make peace with a Jewish state? And clearly there's going to need to be some kind of reinterpretation of Dar al-Islam. Yeah.
One word, a reform. Islam is the youngest Abrahamic faith. All Abrahamic faiths went through reform. Islam needs to go through a reform, and saying that doesn't mean that you hate your own faith, but you're saying the truth, that we need a reform. And a reform that would tell you that, for example, that you have to accept many different things and many facts on the ground. For example, the connection and the connection of the Jewish people to this land is unquestionable. And by the way, you said the Peel Commission. Let me tell you something about a very short story of the Arab-Israeli conflict. You know how many propositions or how many deals were proposed to solve this before the Arab Initiative? Around 6 or 7. The Peel Commission. You have the Morrison-Grady. You have the 1947 partition plan. You have the war. You have everything that happened, and all of these plans were turned down. So I do believe that the situation now is more difficult, but there has to be a conviction that would make the Muslims believe that this is the homeland of the Jewish people. The Jews decided to, or the Jews returned to their homeland, and now there's a sovereign state, a Jewish state called Israel. We have to make peace with it, and we have to integrate it, and we have to live side by side and flourish the Middle East together. So a reform.
Yeah.
Just like it's like
Who's going to do that? Yeah. That's the whole question.
Yeah.
We're all asking the same thing.
Well, Louis is taking a frontline position.
I believe religious.
And start this.
I believe religious leaders should do this, and political leaders as well.
Which leaders?
I believe religious.
Which religious leaders?
We'll take questions in literally 10 minutes time. We'll go to you, so don't worry. We'll give you a chance to ask a question. But
this is the problem, or this is how you solve the problem. Otherwise you cannot solve it really.
Yeah. Well, I think a key part of this is also how, again, as I was saying before, how they understand the Jewish people's relationship with the land of Israel. I asked you 2 days ago if you think there's good basis in Islam to teach that within the Quran itself, it says that God designated the land of Israel to the Jewish people. Assigned, yes. So can you just expand on that?
Yeah, but the Muslims will say, well, these Jews were not the Ashkenazis now. So
they need to also believe that we are the biological descendants of Abraham.
Not only that, I always say that if you want to know whether the Jews nowadays are the same Jews 3,000 years ago, look at the language, to the rituals, to the festivals, to everything. It's the same.
Yeah.
So even 2,000 years ago, Jesus, a Jewish rabbi, he celebrated Hanukkah. In the Gospel of John, there is a verse that says that Jesus ascended to Jerusalem to celebrate the festival of dedication. You know what that is?
Hanukkah.
Hanukkah is dedication.
Yeah.
So the same rituals, the same beliefs, the same people. And those who ask for, and by the way, I want to tell you one thing, that the word Jew is a key to understanding the connection between the Jewish people and this land. You know where this word comes from? The word Jew. It comes from, if you want to have the complete right answer, it would be that when the land of Canaan, when Joshua bin Nun entered the land of Canaan, he partitioned the land according to the Hebrew Bible. And those who ask for an archaeological evidence for that, I will give you one right now. So when Joshua bin Nun partitioned the land on the 12 tribes of Jacob, he gave part of that land that you call now the West Bank, which is now you call Yehuda v'Shemron. He gave this to Judah, the fourth son of Jacob. At that time, the Jews were called the Israelites, not the Jews yet. In 586 BCE, when Babylonians took the Jews into exile, they asked the Jews, or they asked the Israelites in Babylonia, where do you guys come from? They said, we come from Judea, we are the Jews. If that part of the land was given to Binyamin, you would now be called the Binyaminites, I would say. So this is the true proof that Jews are connected to this land of Judea. And you cannot take this away, and you cannot change history. And the Quran, by the way, when it talked about the story of the children of Israel, it said that God, one of the reasons that God punished the Jews is that because they refused to enter the land that He assigned to them, and He punished them for 40 years. And the Quran doesn't give you the details why 40 years. The Tanakh does. 40 years because when God sent the spies, the 12 spies to spy on Jericho, it was for 40 days. So for each day they were punished a year. This is why you have 40 years. Except for two people. Even those two people are praised in the Quran. Believe it or not, Joshua bin Nun and Caleb bin Yufanna. Joshua from the tribe of Ephraim and Caleb from the tribe of Yehuda. And these were the only two who entered the land after 40 years. Even Moses and Aaron didn't. So this is the connection that you need to re-educate people about why the Jews are so attached to a land that has no oil, no rich resources, but it has, of course, a great history and a rich history with the Jewish prophets.
So do you think if more Muslims believe that we really are the descendants of those ancient Jews, that would be quite a big paradigm shift?
No.
You don't?
No.
So what is the paradigm shift then that's needed?
No, I'm just telling, I'm being very honest with you. They don't believe so because they believe that you can never have a sovereign Jewish state among the Muslim states.
So you need a reform. You need a reform to that.
Yes.
I'm wondering also if whether, you tell us about how you fell in love with learning Tanakh, the Torah.
Yeah.
Even taught himself Hebrew.
Torah is part of the Tanakh.
Of course, yeah. And do you think do you think that needs to be introduced into Muslim education, teaching the Torah?
I wish it happens, because first of all, it would bring Muslims and Jews closer. And when I say this, by the way, I don't exclude Christians as well. I love Christians so much, but I'm just saying that Muslims and Jews, because my focus is on Judaism. But I would say that would be great, but not the way that is how to say this, improper, like the protocols of the elders of Zion, and you call it the Jewish education. No, if you teach people the Tanakh and the Quran and the similarities, and that how we both of us worship the same God, and we both, for example, accept that there is no God but God, and the deity who says La ilaha illallah in Arabic, and you say in Hebrew in Ud min Vado, and how similar we are in faith. I believe this could play a big role, especially also when it's associated with teaching Hebrew and the similarities between Hebrew and Arabic. That is what I'm trying. That is what I'm trying to do on my social media, is educating, making people love what I love, because I fell in love with the Tanakh. So I'm trying to simplify the stories of the Tanakh and simplify the stories in the Torah, and also making the connection. And I always say, by the way, that a Muslim would never understand so many stories in the Quran without going back to the Tanakh. I'll give you one example. The second chapter that we have in the Quran, it's called chapter Al-Baqarah. We have a story a verse that says, ask the children of Israel, Alam tara, haven't you seen the children of Israel when they asked their prophet, assign us a king? Now, if you read this verse by itself, you would never understand anything. But if you know the Tanakh very well, you would know the story. The story was talking about that prophet was Samuel, who's also the last judge, because Israel, the first judge was Uthniel, a nephew of Joshua, and then the last judge was Ali or Samuel. The children of Israel went to Samuel and said, assign us a king. And that king was Saul. In the Quran, it's Talut. And then, why did they ask for a king? Because the children of Israel were ruled by judges. But they were saying that everyone around us has a king, so we need a king as well. Without understanding this context, you would never understand why the Jews asked Samuel to have a king for Israel, who was Saul, and then who was followed by, according to the Talmud, his son, and then by David. And according to the Tanakh, who was followed by David. And then you read a verse in the Quran that says that David was a king. Without understanding the Tanakh, he would never understand a kingdom. A king of what? What was his kingdom? Believe it or not, it was the kingdom of Israel, the united kingdom of Israel. I believe that the United Kingdom has its own inspiration from that, because it was a united kingdom of Israel before it was partitioned into two kingdoms.
Oh, absolutely. And if you look at the coronation, actually, of King Charles recently, there are so many references, Hebrew Bible references.
I believe the United Kingdom was named after the United Kingdom of Israel.
And I do think that you're falling in love with stories within the Tanakh will play a critical role, I think, in inspiring Muslims to rethink how they see the restoration of Israel and the Jewish people to the land of Israel, because it's really bringing all of that back to life, which for them as deeply committed believers should be something deeply exciting. But I now want to throw it out to the audience, so please raise your hands and I'll give you a chance to ask a question to Louis if you have one.
First of all, do all Muslims believe in the Hadith? And if not, or if yes, do you consider yourself still like a Muslim in this kind of like manner?
I consider myself a Muslim. I pray and fast and I do all the rituals, but I have my own understanding of Islam. I believe that Islam, I said it with Rick, I believe that Islam is a universal Judaism. In what sense? I'll tell you how.
It comes to to replace Judaism.
But
I'm Jewish by ethnicity.
I'll tell you how. I believe that Judaism is the basis of all the faiths in the Abrahamic faith. So, for example, if you come to Jesus' teachings himself, I'm talking about Jesus' teachings himself, they were pure rabbinic Jewish teachings. And Jesus himself was a great rabbi. Of course, I believe in Jesus as a Muslim, but I always say that his basis was Jewish. I would say the Israelite monotheism is the basis of Islam. The Israelite monotheism is the worship of the God of Abraham alone, and only the God of Abraham, without any associates, without any partners, without any that God is a jealous God, stuff like that. So the thing is that Judaism is the basis of all the Abrahamic faiths. It has its own effect on it. So I believe that Islam is, I don't want to say a Jewish sect, please don't quote me on that. I don't want to say a Jewish sect.
I just find it a little offensive.
No, but I don't say a Jewish sect, but I would say it's highly affected by the basis of Judaism. So I consider myself a Muslim because I see lots of beautiful things in Islam, and I always say this, that I care about my fellow Muslims. I care about changing them to better versions of themselves. I don't want them to go through the hate that I've been through, and I want them to grow up living, accepting their Jewish brothers as not only as friends, as allies, and to refuse any text that would tell them otherwise. That's simple. I know that so many Muslims would consider me an apostate, which I really don't care. I know many Muslims would consider this an apostate or how to say this, blasphemy. I don't really care, but I care about what I believe in. I have sets of beliefs. I would say a mix of Jewish Muslim values, And I care about my fellow Muslims. I really care about my fellow Muslims. And I always tell them, I am a Muslim, I'm on your side, but I want you to change to a better versions of yourselves. That's it. That's how I define myself, by the way.
Yes.
You know, years ago, we wanted to know how we can make peace with the Palestinians. And everybody was throwing money at them. And for Hadassah Hospital, we went to the United Nations, and I said to the head of the United Nations, I said, can't you, and I blame it on the United Nations, because I said, can't you teach the children, instead of just throwing money at them, change the education at school? Because if you change the education, maybe the next generation there can be peace. Because you cannot make peace with people you don't trust. Trust is important, respect is important, caring really for people is important. So if it doesn't exist, how can you ever make peace? And okay, Israel made peace with Egypt, yet somebody a soldier killed an Israeli.
Terrible, yeah.
Yes, so it means that people, how to get all the people to love Jewish people? How?
Education first, and this is
education, but even United Nations wasn't willing.
So I believe two things. First of all, education, and this is the first thing that has to be done when the war ends. And second of all, the political leaders should set examples for others to follow. We are mostly monarchists, so we follow the king, we follow the leader. I believe Sadat, may his memory be a blessing, was going to do this, was going to set an example, but he paid his life for it. I saw a video of his, he was making jokes with Golda Meir, and these were fighting with each other, but they showed that peace can truly happen. Sadat wanted to open Egypt to a real, genuine peace with Israel. I believe so. When Mubarak saw that Sadat paid his life for it, he retracted. Unfortunately, this is what the problem with Egypt. Even though I believe that the Israelis love Egypt so much, and I hope that one day, inshallah, Egyptians would love Israelis as much as they do. Education and leadership, the political leadership, if they set examples to their people to see how we can live together, I believe that this can happen.
It's come to England. Look how it's here. The hatred on the street.
But hatred on your street, and if I respectfully disagree with you, it's because of the laws here that are over tolerant.
Yeah.
Yes, that's my personal humble opinion.
Yes.
Loay, I know I've had a second crack, but I asked a similar question on Monday, and Muriel asked the question now, so I'm helping Muriel here on this question. Who is going to oversee, in your opinion, who is going to oversee, once inshallah, the war is over, the de-radicalization of Gaza, and playing devil's advocate with 30, whatever the number is, with 30,000 dead soldiers and civilians, dead terrorists and civilians in Gaza? To what extent is that becoming a fantasy that we can ever achieve that, given what's now we're sowing potentially 3 generations of hatred? What's your views on that?
Well, I will be very honest with you. I don't know how we can make sure of that, but I would say that a serious Palestinian leadership has to emerge. A serious Palestinian leadership that believes. I don't know where it is. Honestly, I don't know. But I'm just.
We can fool ourselves as much as we like to say that Hamas is like this foreign body in Gaza, but it's not.
They're all.
No, they're voted for.
Well, I would just say one thing. I would just want to.
Guys, let Loay speak, please.
I would just say one thing, that before I entered at Denise's house, I was with Rick in the car, and I told him a story that was published 2 hours ago by Israel Arabic account on Twitter, that the Minister of Domestic in Israel, his name is Moshe something, the Minister of Interior in Israel, he honored a Gazan, because that Gazan that Gazan,
His wife was killed.
his wife was killed, and he reported to the Israelis the location of terrorists that were going after the people in Supernova Music Festival. And because of that report, he saved the lives of so many Israeli soldiers. So I wouldn't say all Gazans. I wouldn't say all Gazans. That would be unfair. But I would say that these people, I would say that a lot of, I would say a lot of people in Gaza are radicalized, but I have hope that they will change. Don't forget that many people changed. And I just want you to, I don't want you to be so harsh on the people of Gaza by saying all of them are. I know the pain. I lost a friend, by the way, in the Supernova Music Festival. Her name was Imbar. She was a beautiful 19-year-old lady. And some people in the Supernova Music Festival were in Dubai a couple of days before the massacre happened. So I know the pain, but I just don't want to, I really want to change people to the better. So I believe that even those in Gaza who are radicalized can change if there's a will, inshallah. And if you save, in the Talmud and the Quran, if you save one life, you save humanity. If you kill one person, you kill humanity. Yeah. Let's not be like them. Let's not be like the monsters who want to solve everything with. Even though I understand the pain, I do.
But trust comes.
I know.
Look, the photographer who took all the information from the lady.
I know.
The people who lived.
By the way, I want to tell you one thing. When I was in Washington, I was in the Israeli embassy, and I saw a 45-minute footage that no one saw. I don't think that it's authorized to be viewed to the public. 45-minute footage in the Israeli embassy in Washington, and it was a horror movie. It was a real horror movie, a real horror movie. So, I really understand the pain that. I'm sorry. It was the yeah. It was the body cam. It was.
Can we let him speak, please?
It was the GoPro footages and the surveillance cameras from the kibbutzim, and GoPro footages recorded by the militants themselves. One of the footage was a militant entering a house speaking in pure Arabic that I understand. I'm sorry, a terrorist, of course. A terrorist entering a house, and that by that morning, by the chance that a family was there eating breakfast, he killed the entire family and then he ate their breakfast like nothing happened. That was pure evil. And another footage, we saw a different camera angle from the one that is published for a woman escaping the Supernova Music Festival, begging for her life to that terrorist. And he killed her eventually. I know why he killed her, because she's a Jew. You know, the fierce enemies of the believers. And he would believe that he has to kill her because he would go to heaven if he does. So this is absolutely horrendous. And these are the people that Israel is fighting.
Yeah. Before we continue with questions, can I just please say, with respect, I understand there's a great deal of passion in the room, which I share. But if people just scream out and say things, then it's just going to become dysfunctional. We won't be able to hear from Lou, we won't be able to hear from you. So I will make the time to hear from you, but please just raise your hand and we'll get to you. Then you'll be heard, Lou will hear you. And also, I know there's a lot of concern about the extent of the problem, but it is important to remember that Loay was at one point part of the problem in a sense. He had those views, and he understands, at least in his case, how he made that journey. So we really should give him that time to hear from him and let him explain, just, even though I know we feel a lot of justified concern. Yes.
And this is why I'm sorry to say this. This is why when people ask me, how do you face hate that you receive on social media? I say I face it with wisdom for a simple reason, because one day I was in their shoes.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, just before I go to you, I did promise I'll go to you first, yeah.
Thank you very much for speaking.
Welcome, Joshua.
Good memory. The question is not about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, more about your advocacy in educating moderate Muslims. So in Saudi, in UAE, how are you finding that? How many people are listening to you, changing their minds, attitudes, your family, for example.
You have to follow my Instagram,
I follow
Joshua.
you.
You follow me.
I follow you, yeah.
I will follow you.
I
Follow you. You're speaking to me, who I'm a big fan.
Hold on.
I want to hear like your Saudi family, your Egyptian family, your friends in the Middle East. How
If you followed me, you would see a message that I received from Snapchat from a follower from Saudi Arabia saying that I'm changing my views on Israel because I'm learning new things from you, and I shared this message, and that means you didn't like the message, and you like and comment and share.
No, so I'm sure you get many tweets or comments from followers, but you grew up there, so your family, your friends, how are they feeling?
Now, in the time of war, it's so hard. I'm just being very honest with you. In the time of war, it's so hard because people are being very emotional. I remember having similar emotions in the time of Iraq, in the war of Iraq in 2003 and 2004, where, oh, look, this war is being waged by America, the imperial power, power and all of this. So the times of war, people get emotional. But when you have some sort of a stable condition like the one in 2020 to 2022, when things were a bit stable, people would listen even more. And by the way, my Instagram is the messaging I do in English, but not only in English. I do for Snapchat in Arabic. I do in Twitter or X, Arabic and English. So I believe that there is a change in people's minds and hearts. But it's my message now to be patient to see those people change, just like I did change. You have to be patient with people, but I see people change, and that's the most important thing, because I don't aim to proselytize people, and I don't aim to force people to change, and I don't aim to change them because you have to change. No, I challenge the knowledge. I provide facts. I debunk lies, refute claims with knowledge, not with just, oh, you have to change.
Absolutely. The man at the back, yeah. Could you please stand up?
Thank you, Denise. I have questions. Have you been to Lebanon?
I have been to Lebanon. Our family.
Have you visited the Palestinian camp?
No, I haven't.
Have you been to Gaza?
No, I haven't.
May I ask why? You've been to the Israeli embassy.
I haven't been to Israel.
Have you been, okay, second question. The horrors that you described on the 45 minutes presentation given to the Israeli embassy. Would you care to tell us a little bit about the other horrors that you should have seen?
I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
I cannot hear.
Telegram. Look at Telegram.
I cannot hear.
He's asking about the horrors in the 45-minute video, but there are people who object because they don't want to hear the specific details for perfectly understandable reasons.
But in general terms, would you care to cover that bit of it? Just 1 second. No, you know why? Democracy. We live in a bad society, and I would appreciate if we can have a balanced presentation, not just perhaps one side. So would you care to put some dawah in Arabic on that aspect of the atrocities that were committed?
So let me tell. Okay, I understand the point. Okay, let me answer this. First of all,
Why not? I've been whistled and booed. Why shouldn't I hear both sides of the story?
Okay.
Please, let's allow Louis to answer.
Okay. Without interruption, s'il vous plaît. Okay. Okay, so I just want to say one thing. First of all, as I told you, I do care about the Palestinians as much as I care about the Israelis. I do believe that that what's happening right now, the war is ugly. I believe any war is ugly. And all casualties, we mourn the deaths of the innocents in each and every war. And as I said, just if you kill a person, you kill humanity. And if you save a person, you save humanity. There has to be someone to blame for those deaths in Gaza. But it's not IDF, it's Hamas. That is the thing. That is the moral stance that we need to make. This war, by the way, Israel did not go to because it wanted to.
It wasn't my question.
We're not, unfortunately, we're not going to, sorry, unfortunately.
Excuse me, 1 second. We don't respect your tone, but we appreciate you may want to look at me when I speak to you. We don't what is your name? Stand, present yourself.
Let's move on.
And, no, 1 second. And let us know what's your agenda, because that
My
makes
agenda is
sense.
to come here and listen to balance.
Okay, we're not going to have sorry.
May I suggest, Loay is a very capable, articulate young man. And may I suggest, just for the process of this conversation, that you two have a conversation offline, because we all respect your opinion. We feel we don't get the full picture or the full place you come from. Can we suggest that?
Absolutely, we'll arrange that afterwards. Can I suggest that also, I must also just make clear that you have an opportunity to ask a question, but it's not a conversation. So you can ask the question, then Loay will answer. Again, just to give everyone a chance to ask their questions. There will be an opportunity for follow-up, and people will be able to contact Loay as well afterwards. Yes.
Thank you for your words. Thank you for your encouragement. It's been a great help. I want to ask you a question about what was behind Hamas, because Hamas didn't come from nowhere. You had UNRWA, who were very, very influential, United Nations Watch, whatever it's called, were very influential in creating Hamas, enabling it. What is your feeling about UNRWA and the importance of what they taught the children in the schools and allowed, and what was the connection that UNRWA had with the United Nations, and should United Nations be held to account?
The foundation of an agency like UNRWA, when you look at it, you find it noble, like to help the refugees and to end their status of being refugees. In 1948, there were 1 million Jewish refugees, and now 0. They move on. You cannot have an agency that have this mission of keeping refugees as refugees forever. That's one. And the second thing is that the second thing, honestly, is that the proofs that were presented, having UNRWA implicated in the attacks of October 7th, are overwhelming, and I believe that they should be held accountable. And I believe that part of them really participated in the October 7 attacks, because cameras do not lie, and it showed the names and the people who participated in this, and it's absolutely unfortunate.
Sorry, unfortunately, we're not being able to have
But it's unfortunate, and I believe an UNRWA agency should focus on ending the fact that the refugees being refugees, not keeping refugees as refugees for good.
Yeah, we have a question at the back. Yeah.
Hi. I just want to take the conflict outside of the actual Middle East and into the rest of the world for a second. As admirable and hopeful as everything you say, and please God it will be true, the rhetoric does not fit the narrative that is popular right now. Yeah. No one wants to see a strong Israel. No one wants to see a strong Middle East with Israel and the Arab states together. No one. It suits the woke agenda to show Israel as a colonial power, whereas the numbers don't work. We're a minority. How do you present the beautiful story that you are presenting to the Western media and the Western social media, which you're a very big part of, when they don't want to hear that?
I tell them I totally disagree with them for a simple reason. When the Abraham Accords happened, the Abraham Accords were all about a Middle East where the children of Abraham reconcile, the children of Ishmael and Isaac, but hold on a second. And that included Israel being integrated in the region with the Arab states that signed the agreement, which were the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan's on and off because of the coup that happened. But I'm just saying that the Abraham Accords is the proof that we want a strong Israel integrated in the region. Unfortunately, I would have to blame a bit sorry to say this too, I love the Americans so much, but I have to blame the American administration for not being supportive enough to the Abraham Accords, which I believe in the case of Trump, maybe things would be different.
Yeah, Jonathan.
You mentioned that your mum, when you got back from France, gave you 4 days. I think you said 4 days.
2 months, wasn't it?
She said 2 months, and you will go back.
2 months. So I kind of want. Sorry to throw you a softball. It doesn't seem to be fashionable at the moment. But how are your parents about everything now? And are you still in touch with your friends in France?
I love my mom so much. You know,
How does she feel about you?
I'll tell her. She loves me so much. I can tell you that. I can tell you that, Mom. You know, Mom told me that. I feel that your passion for the Tanakh made you a better son. I told her, Mom, you know, the Tanakh says, "Kaved et avicha ve'et imecha le'arichon yamecha al ha'adama asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach." You have to honor your father and mother, because so that the Lord your God will prolong your days in the land that He gave you. And by the way, I'm so proud of my mother. You know why? Even though she disagrees with what I do, when her friends call her and tell her, "Look what your son is saying about Israel on social media," they try to intimidate her. You know what she tells them? Tell them, "I had this conversation with my son 14 years ago, and he's knowledgeable enough to talk about what he believes in, and I support him." This is why I am so proud of my mom, and I love my mom so much. My dad passed away. May his memory be a blessing. But my mom is absolutely. By the way, my mom and my sister and my brother are very supportive because it's not. Listen, it's not about sudden fascination or a temporary fascination after France and twin. No, Mom, she saw that I invested lots of my time in learning Hebrew, in learning the Bible, in learning the history, in investing so much time and money in learning all of the things that I'm talking about right now. So she respects that. Even though she comes to me and say, "You know what, I still believe that Jews are this and that." But the way she backs her friends when they badmouth me is something that I feel so proud of, and I love her eternally. I believe that God wants me to love my mother, even if we have different agreements on Israel. Even though I told my mom, I always tell her, "Mom, I believe that those who bless Israel will be blessed, and I ask God to bless you as you are blessed, and even bless you more, inshallah."
Wow. We have maybe time for just one or two more questions if there's any fun ones. Yeah.
Do you get?
No, sorry, come to you next.
I once had lunch with two of the main negotiators on the Palestinian side of the Camp David agreements. They were, as you said, they thought this was the best deal
The 2001.
Negotiating. They said they only had one big problem with it, and that was they knew that the moment they would take it to Arafat, all he had to do was sign it, that he would never sign it. And the reason why was because he didn't want to go down in history as the person that made peace with Israel, but he certainly didn't want to be the person to go down in history as the person that gave away pre-67 Israel. He didn't care about the West Bank, he just cared about, because that was the Al-Fatah emblem. It was the pre-67 Israel. And he said he just said, "We're not going to do it." And he's not going to be the one to do it. And he then started the Intifada.
And he will not be remembered. May his memory be, may God have mercy on his soul. But he could have been remembered as a person that would bring peace between Arabs and Israelis and save the bloodshed that we see right now. He could have done it if he really wanted to be a great person to be remembered. But he missed that chance, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Do you get death threats?
Death threats, intimidations I get, but death threats, not yet. But intimidations, but let me tell you one thing. Some Islamists really do this kind of intimidation. But I can tell you one thing: they threw their best in this war. They did their best in intimidating and going after me and in marring my reputation. Oh, he's a paid Zionist. He's paid this and that. Oh, he's changed his views because someone paid for him. And I always say that the Mossad really owes me a lot. Sometimes I think that Israelis are paying me a lot, and this is why I say that. But maybe
Saudi Arabia owes you.
Maybe, you never know. But I always say that I tell my audience that you can follow me and you can see if I change my views based on knowledge or based on emotions.
I have to say that, I mean, I'm sure I can reflect the audience as well in saying that we're just, you're a breath of fresh air. And You should be the norm in a sane world. They are not at the moment, but it is my strong belief, and I believe this at a theological level, that when it comes to Arabs and Jews and their relationship with the Jewish people and with Israel and our relationship with them, that there's not just going to be peace, but actually we're going to become the best of friends because we have so much in common. You heard it here first. But Loay, thank you so much for your time, for your friendship, and wish you the best of luck, hatzlacha, with all your work.
Thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you.